Great, nice to see everyone. Cool. So we are beginning now with our, oops. We are beginning now with our gathering, community gathering, group meditation, and exploration of some Buddhist teachings. If you're watching the live on YouTube, you will see the title that is the title that is The Nature of Mind is Essentially Untroubled, plus What is a Merit Bank. So I want to start off today by talking about the announcement that I made in the server today about firstly encouraging people to host group meditation sessions. You know, if you have some experience with meditation, or if you have some experience with technology, so like if you know how to use Discord and screen share or do different things like that, then a really good way that you can practice doing good deeds and to practice your own practice is to host a group meditation session in this community. So I invite everyone here to consider that if you either have, some practice experience that you can offer, or if you have some technical experience that you can offer, and you have that intention to show up at a particular time to host or like facilitate one of these gatherings, then that's a really good way to deepen your own practice and to cultivate blessings, to cultivate those good effects from doing good deeds. So I hope that everyone can consider that if that's within their ability. I can say for myself that sometimes, some days it's very difficult to meditate, don't have the inspiration or don't have the will to do it, right? And having a community or a responsibility to show up and host something or facilitate something really empowers me to meditate. And then bing, bang, boom, the effect is very clear. There's a brightening and a peacifying of my mind and a happiness that comes with that. So it's a good opportunity for doing good deeds and practice. And you can even just show up, welcome people, and stream a Dhamma talk. And we have some selected Dhamma talks and teachings that you can use, stuff from YouTube. The second part of that announcement was about opening up a merit bank here in the server. So what is a merit bank? What is merit? So merit is like the accrued effects, the seeds that you plant from doing good deeds. So if you participate in doing a lot of good deeds, if you participate in a lot of generosity, it's just like you accrue merit. You accrue, you get goodness that's kind of stored within yourself and then expresses, in different ways. And you can see that people who are very involved in taking care of their life and doing good deeds and doing good things, they have a quality of brightness and energy to them, and good things seem to happen to them, right? So that's this idea of merit. So a merit bank is basically an opportunity for people here in this server to donate things that they might have. Maybe you have some Buddhist books in your room, or some spiritual books, or you have some candles, or you have some things that you would like to offer up to our community here. And so the merit bank will be a channel where you can say, hey, I have this really nice candle. It doesn't, whatever, you can offer freely. It's that intention to give. Or I have this book, or I have this blanket, or I have, I want to build, I have $1 million. I want to build us a physical space, for this community. Whatever it is, you can offer. So you make a post with what you want to share, what you want to offer, and then people who are looking to withdraw, to maybe they need something or whatever, they can say, hey, I could use that. And then the staff here and this community here will try to help facilitate if there needs to be expenses for shipping or something like that. We'll try to help in some ways. And so we're also going to have a PayPal account that's specifically for this purpose, where people can donate to support for shipping and things like that. Okay, so it's a simple enough idea, but it's also very profound. Okay, in terms of this ability to give freely and to receive freely. Nothing else involved. Not about making a profit, but about giving and receiving freely in merit. So in goodness, in generosity, and in receiving to use. To use only, not just, oh, I want this, 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 and this, but to use only. Okay, and this is both, kind of a way for us to practice generosity and to experience the benefits of generosity. And it's also something that kind of solidifies or deepens the real community aspect of this place. The fortitude, the depth, the solidity of our community here. So if, for example, right, if all 20 of us, or people show up at different times, but if we were meeting together daily, 20 plus people in a physical space, in a room together, I mean, that's pretty intimate, intense stuff to be doing that. When we come together here, and also this, the monk life community, the Discord, it's our minds that are showing up. And just like what we looked at yesterday, this teaching we looked at yesterday, the mind is actually more essential, more at the forefront of our lives than our body. So when we make this conscious, intentional decision to show up here together, it's there is a solidity to it. There's a depth to it. And so this merit bank, I think, is a kind of really practical way to express that, and to get involved in supporting one another and practicing generosity and taking advantage of this space and this community. Okay? And this is something that is kind of a branch or an extension of what my teacher has been doing for many years. So my teacher, one of my teachers, my main teacher, is a monk from Myanmar. And he has meditation centers all over the world that are functioning off of this premise of merit. Okay, so through generosity, he is able to establish a meditation center, and then all of the bills and the food and the needs of that center are all fulfilled through generosity, through offering, not selling anything or this kind of business, but through this doing good deeds, mindfulness, and detachment. Through the power of that, these centers are established and run. And so the main center of my teacher in Myanmar has over 4,000 people, over 5,000 people who can get health care, food, housing, medical services, you name it. They can receive that there in Myanmar. And we have these kind of meditation centers all over the world. So anyone here as well, if you are looking for a place to stay or want to get more involved in the meditation life, all of this is on the table. Okay, and this merit bank is a good way to kind of express that, and so we can do it in our own small way. And then in America, we have the center in LA. So also, if you want to visit that in America, we also have a center in Italy that is has space. So if you want to take an Italian vacation, it's a great place to go. Mindfulness and detachment, doing good deeds, vacation. Okay. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I want to ask, what's the name of the place in LA that you just mentioned?
Tabarwa Mindfulness and Detachment Center.
Thank you.
Okay, pretty straightforward. So let's get into our practice today. We're going to look at a teaching from Ajahn Buddhadasa on the topic of the nature of mind is essentially untroubled. So that will be the subject of our Dhamma teachings or truth teachings today. And in opening ourselves up for that, we'll start with a few minutes of meditation. Okay, so take a moment to find a really nice, comfortable, stable position to be in, to sit in, get comfortable and stable. You can close your eyes if you like. Start by taking 2 or 3 deep breaths. Breathing in deeply and really bringing the mind home to the body. Breathing in awareness, intentionality. Breathing out relaxation, calming. And as we start to relax and calm through our breathing, we bring this focusing on the breath to the forefront of our mind, as if it were an activity that we were being paid very, very nicely for. The breath as something essential, interesting, important. The breath as something that is supporting and sustaining our life in a very direct and integral way. Giving our full attention to the breath as it flows in, supporting our whole body, and flows out, relaxing the whole body. Breathe as deeply and fully as you need to really gather that interest and attention and sincerity on the breath. So it's not to go anywhere, it's not to do anything, it's not to have a meditation experience. It is just to fully be with the breath at this present moment as it flows in and flows out. Allowing the breath to find a more and more natural rhythm, less and less controlling the breath in any way, but just fully aware of the breath happening, being very interested, curious even about the happening of the breath right now. More and more interested in this breathing that is literally keeping the body alive. Okay, so we'll start now with our Dhamma reading. Make sure that you're comfortable, but also maintaining your mindfulness, your meditation mind, and listening to these teachings from the heart, from the breath. We left off yesterday with this teaching, this idea that at first in people's lives, we don't have any knowledge of enlightenment. We don't really have any knowledge of the state of not being in suffering, not being in a constant state of desire and fear, aversion, liking and disliking. But after experiencing a lot of suffering, we begin to search for clues to the ending of suffering. We begin to search for clues to resolve these problems. After repeatedly meeting with trouble and difficulty, we discover that the suffering comes from our minds being poorly maintained and wrongly directed. Starting over and looking in a new direction, we realize that suffering doesn't occur when we don't make up a self. This strong, rigid, attached view of myself, someone, some experience that's separate from everything else. And that is where we enter onto this path of investigating the body as the body, the mind as the mind, without a need for a self. Okay, this real, true character controller. All right? The nature of mind is essentially untroubled. Our fourth topic is crucial for understanding mind. Natural mind is without corruptions and troubles of greed, aversion, and delusion. Mind is a natural element. Mind element, or perhaps a formless element. So like just awareness, the element of awareness itself. It's a natural element in the same sense that earth, water, fire, and wind are natural elements. However, this particular element concocts itself and becomes the mind we speak of. Mind on the most fundamental level isn't good or bad. So this particular element, which is a little bit different from fire or earth, kind of reifies itself. It makes itself into something. So when we speak of mind, we're speaking of a particular quality of our preferences, our desires, our fears, our complicated thinking. So it's kind of built itself up in a particular way. Mind on the most fundamental level isn't good or bad. It is without any form of affliction or trouble, and is therefore described as luminous, like the clear, sparkling radiance of a diamond or the bright radiance of the sun. Of course, this luminosity is formless, immaterial. So what comes to my mind right now is a fire. So that our mind is an element like fire is an element. And at its core, fire is formless. Fire has no material. And at its purest form, right, fire is this bright, luminous, super hot sun. You know, we can't even look directly into the sun. We'll go blind. And so our minds are also like this. Our minds are luminous, bright, formless, not material. But at certain times, fire catches onto something. Fire grabs a hold of something, a twig or a branch. And through cosmic conditions, it can spread and it can become this large, dangerous, raging, burning fire. In the place that we most don't want to have a fire, right? It kind of concocts itself. This element itself of fire, which is just kind of pure, fire's not good or bad, concocts itself, builds itself up into this forest fire, threatening homes and families and our resources, natural resources. And in the same way, when the mind catches on to something, gets a hold of something, right, it can build itself up into this mind that is just burning and raging and threatening our peace, our happiness, our freedom, our joy. But at its core, mind on the most fundamental level isn't good or bad. It's without any form of affliction, meaning like an attached negative state or trouble, and is therefore described as luminous, like the clear, sparkling radiance of a diamond or the bright radiance of the sun. And of course, this luminosity is formless, immaterial. And that's formless in terms of mental or physical. So it's formless. It's not a mental form or a physical form, this mind. It's not a mental or physical material. And in Buddhism, we consider that this is the nature of the mind: bright, open, free, pure, undefiled, uncorrupted, uncorruptible, the nature of mind. The nature of this luminous mind is to be unpolluted and uncorrupted by the kilesas. Okay, so these are like our attachments, our greed, our anger, our delusion, our desire, our fear. So the nature of this luminous mind is to be unpolluted and uncorrupted by these kilesas. Yet it can concoct troubles superficially. The kilesas, these negative mental states. The eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind can stimulate the arising of these negative mental states that temporarily overwhelm mind, obscuring its luminosity for a time. Okay, so the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, as they are interacting with sense media, interacting with our environment, can kind of stimulate this arising of anxiety, this arising of complicated thinking, this arising of anger, this arising of lust, that temporarily overwhelm the mind, obscuring its luminosity for a time. But it's just a temporary condition that kind of covers up the fog of this awareness itself, mind itself. In the seeing itself. In the hearing itself. But when these kilesas, these negative mind states come up, our anxiety, our anger, what have you, they obscure this pure mind, this clear mind, this awareness itself. However, once the conditions supporting those negative states of mind change and end, that affliction withers away and the luminous mind reemerges. So awareness itself reemerges. Mind is just like this. This is its true nature. It is naturally luminous until the wrong kind of concocting, and that's the wrong kind of getting entangled and getting attached, creates troubles that cloud and obscure its natural luminosity, its natural clarity and brightness. While luminous, while the mind is bright, it is empty of suffering, dissatisfaction, and trouble-free. When no longer luminous, when no longer bright, aware, here in the present, and thus polluted, attached, involved with these negative mind states, it becomes distressed, confused, turbulent, and suffering. The important observation is that originally and fundamentally, mind is not afflicted or corrupt. Okay. Originally and fundamentally, our awareness is not that anxiety or that fear or that reactivity, but at its core, it is unpolluted. The mind is unpolluted. The mind is unconcocted, uncomplicated, untangled at its core. The mind is like this. So, this is the important observation. The negative mind states are just passing occurrences created when mind reacts carelessly to stimulation via the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Mind is taken over by these negative mind states when it is confused by the senses. Any questions so far?
Yes, I have a question. Is this teaching trying to say that if there is no self, there is no suffering?
Yeah, that's part of it. That's a big part of it. The self is like this initial point of attachment that causes all of our suffering.
I'm thinking about the little baby because I used to work as a nanny. So, thinking of a baby, like if a baby has a wet diaper or a baby is hungry and the baby cries, and I think the baby hasn't doesn't have the idea of a self because it's a baby, but it still experiences the suffering of hunger and such. So I don't know. I was just thinking about that. I don't know what the question was. Uh,
Okay. So I don't know that this is exactly saying that it's certainly not exactly saying if there's no self, there's no suffering. But what it is saying is that what my experience is that there is a large amount of added suffering that goes along with my clinging onto, holding onto this self identity that likes or doesn't like at any given moment. Um, so the less that I am emphasizing my someone or something that this is happening to, the more quickly that kilesa, that negative mind state, passes away and reduces. The more that I'm wrapped up in my self idea and self attachment, the more judgmental I am towards myself and towards others, or rather towards the body, towards the mind. And what this is saying is that there's not a self necessarily in any of this. There's a bodily experience, there's a physical experience, and there's a mental experience, but that there's not necessarily a self in any of that.
yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
So in that case, though, if there's a bodily experience and then a mental experience, wouldn't the combination of the two form into a sort of self, like how you define yourself and your existence?
Not necessarily. They are intertwined. They do go together. But is that necessarily a self? Is that a someone? Is that a controller? Is that a permanent fixed entity that's going on or that is experiencing all that? Or is it a happening of mental and physical phenomena intertwining? Uh, Buddha Dasa was saying earlier in this text that the body is just like the physical aspects, the heart, the lungs, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. And the mind, or the body, and the mind is just like an overseer, connecting everything together, like a management, kind of intertwining everything together. So there is a body, there are physical experiences, and there are mental experiences, thoughts, perceptions, inclinations that we have. But is there a self at the core of all of that? Or is it a matter of cause and conditions, cause and effect? So we find out about that through our investigation. Is there a self? Is there a someone here? The issue is in assuming that because there is a physical experience and because there is a mental experience, that there's this real, true soul or this real, true someone that is in the background of all that, experiencing all that continuously, from this point to that point, that all this is filled in with a real, true self who's been going through all this. And the proposition here is to not assume that there is, and to understand that there doesn't necessarily need to be a self for all this to be taking place. Cause and effect does not require a self. A gravity doesn't require a self. Evolution doesn't require a self. Okay, evolution happened, scientific evolution happens according to cause and effect. Why do giraffes have long necks? Because trees are long. So the question becomes, in our moment-to-moment life, in our daily life experience, is it a matter of mental and physical phenomena arising and passing away according to cause and conditions and cause and effect? And it is that, I think. We can all agree that that is what's happening, and arising and passing away of these experiences and cause and effect. And is there a self? Is there a someone? Is there a me? Is there a mine? When I say this is my body and my mind, what am I talking about? Okay. Is there a real character in this dream? Is there a real dreamer, or are dreams just happening? Is there a real character in this story, or is it just a story where nothing can be separated from anything else, where I cannot be separated from the environment? And whatever that I is completely dependent upon cause and conditions that I have had no control over up to this point. Okay, this body is alive, and that I don't have an ability to control that. It's dependent on cause and conditions at this present moment. So where is this I? Where did it come from? Where does it go? Where was it before the body was born? So it's more to question, it's to investigate the mental and physical experiences. And, there's a kind of guidance about, where is your I? Where is yourself? If you're willing to not assume that there is a self and say, okay, well, no, there is a real self, that's me. Like, what are you really talking about there? Okay, you can say that, but what investigation, what depth do you bring to that? So there's a guidance, where is yourself? Is yourself in your fingernails? Is yourself in the eyes? Is it your eyes? Is it in your feet? Is it in your heart? Is it in your lungs? Is it in your brain? And why do we say this is my body? Why do we say this is my mind? Whose mind is it? Whose body is it? And then you just say, well, it's mine. Okay. Well, what's that? What is mine? Where is this mine coming from? So it is to investigate without the assumption that it's necessarily, we're in a Disney Channel movie or a TV show or a movie. Okay. But what's going on here? You kick down the door. What's going on in here? But you do so in a very gentle, sincere way. What's going on here? What is this? Okay. What is the nature of this physical experience? So we're having a physical experience. Okay. There's physical phenomena going on right now, this body. There's also a mental experience. But rather than just saying, well, I'm me, and then going on to TikTok for the rest of our lives, we say, what is this me? What is the self? And We can start this journey by understanding that there doesn't need to be a self, whatever that is. I don't even know what it is. What is a self? Right? What is that? I'm asking it sincerely. I'm not really sure. So there can be a physical experience and a mental experience without a self. There doesn't need to be this self, whatever that is. And this is what these teachings are about. Okay. Anything else?
I have a quick question, if that's okay.
I think it's okay.
Um, so, so what I understand is that this is all like a transformation from being a person into really understanding who you really are, and that does make sense to me. But what I have a question about is, can we really ever escape our identity all the way? Because it feels like whenever I interact with people, um, I want to try to bring that sense of like serenity and peace that I feel when I meditate. But whenever I open up and try to like explain myself or try to talk to someone, I know that my identity comes back. And I was wondering, is it possible to just completely be rid of the identity and to interact with the outside world? Or do we have to kind of balance our identity to interact with other people and our non-being to interact with our environment?
Firstly, don't think so much. Secondly, what we want is not really so important. Okay, I want superpowers. All right, it's not very important. Okay, um, and thirdly, you can take it really, really far. You can train the mind to a great degree. You can totally transform your understanding of who you truly are, and then of course you can naturally bring that to your interactions with other people. Of course you can do that 100% to a much greater degree than you can imagine, because you're living inside of a certain bubble, right? A certain structure of habit patterns and ways of living that you're attached to. And so the spectrum in which you can go outside of that is a bit limited, because it's just like you're bouncing in between these walls of attachment, these hard lines of attachment that you've set in your life. You're going to be bouncing back and forth, and maybe they'll expand if you're sincere enough, if you get involved with your practice of mindfulness, detachment, doing good deeds enough, then those walls can expand, and then eventually maybe you can say, well, hold on. I'm going to give up my life as a construction worker or a business person. I'm going to go to India, or I'm going to become a monk, or whatever. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but you need to use your extra energy on practice and not think so much. The thoughts are not really so important, not so meaningful. Learn how to abandon your thinking and empower your investigation of the senses. Okay, the seeing itself, the hearing itself, the body itself, the mind itself at this present moment.
I see. So I should focus more on my practice, and then the interactions around me would be um, more representative of what I've been practicing. So I guess that makes sense. I need to get rid of my desire to to be anything other than who I am. So thank you for that answer.
Yeah, just be natural and don't overthink it. However you act, and then bring the intention to be simple and sincere. And any extra friction or any extra energy that you've got in there, use that for your practice, for your investigation, not of the ego, not of your thinking, not of your, your narrative about yourself and who you want to be, but your investigation, your looking. Because that kind of thing comes from this assumption that there is this real, true, permanent self that we've got to deal with, that we've got to drag around with us all the time and hope that it gets superpowers or something like that. What the heck? So just don't worry so much about that and focus on your investigation of the truth, your breath, your body, your mind at this present moment, and focus on that. Okay? So let's continue this reading here and see what else comes out. So when seeing very clearly that body and mind can be distinguished, mind knows that it can be taken over by these negative states, or just as well not be taken over. Okay, so when seeing very clearly the body, that is like the senses, and mind can be distinguished, that we can not necessarily separate, but we can discern between the mind and the body. Okay, and this, in some sense, this is what separates us from being like an animal. Okay, an animal doesn't distinguish between their mind and body. Eat, sleep, sex, period. Okay, that's it. There's no distinguishing between the mind and the body. So the mind and the body aren't necessarily separate, but when seeing very clearly, when our mind is sharp and aware and seeing clearly, the body, that is the senses, and mind can be distinguished, can be discerned. Mind, okay, the quality of awareness, the quality of mind, knows that it can be taken over by negative states or negative conditions. Physical conditions come up, and the mind knows that it can be taken over by those negative conditions or states. Okay, the room's too hot, the room's too cold, you're getting beat up, who knows what's happening? You're sick, right? You're dying, whatever. The mind knows that it can be taken over by negative mental states brought on by causing conditions put onto the body, or just as well not be taken over. So in seeing very clearly that the body and the mind can be discerned between, the mind knows that it can be taken over by these negative states brought on by causing conditions, or just as well not be taken over. Right? That's simple enough. We've all experienced that. Someone's poking our belly and we can either get very angry and get into a fight, or we're not so disturbed, we're not so upset. We can be on a bus full of people and it's hot and mosquitoes and stinky and we're dirty, and we can become very suffering and upset and fall into this anxiety or this anger, or we don't have to. The corruptions aren't mind. Okay, so the depression, the anxiety, the fear, these negative states that come up are not mind, which means that they can be prevented. Mind can be managed so that it stays trouble-free and preserves its luminosity, its brightness, its freedom. This is the meaning of vipassana, meditation and mental training that lead to insight. So, in Buddhism, there are two main meditations, styles of meditation. One is a samatha, which basically means like deep states of peace, deep states of concentration and relaxation coming together, so you're totally zoned in and having this very strong absorption state, absorbed into peace and concentration and awareness. That's samatha. And the other kind of meditation is called vipassana, which is an insight meditation. And vipassana means special seeing. So kind of seeing the cause and condition, seeing the arising and passing away of mental and physical phenomena without a self. Okay, so this kind of special seeing, seeing with detachment. And this kind of seeing leads us to insight, or a deeper understanding about the nature of the mind, the nature of our awareness itself, rather than the content that comes up in it and our reactivity to that content. Okay. So, training or cultivating mind means developing it so that nothing can tarnish, dull, or afflict it. So we're here to be mind bodybuilders, all right? Mind marathon runners. It has been much too easy for things to stimulate corruption, darken the brightness of the mind, and create a strong sense of dissatisfaction. This untrained mind, this uncared for, unmanaged mind, leads to a situation where it is much too easy for things to stimulate corruption, darken our brightness, and create dissatisfaction. Now, we will cultivate mind through calming meditation, insight meditation, and other skillful practices, such as doing good deeds. When this work of cultivation, so it's just like we are cultivating the garden of our mind, we're cultivating the garden of our life. When this cultivation is carried out fully, mind cannot be darkened anymore, because it's more intelligent, sharper, and fully capable. The troubles cannot re-arise in the mind. Then this condition is protected, preserved, and improved, not allowing anything to soil or corrupt it again. So this is the practice of cultivation. This is the practice of training our minds. Okay? Experiencing this, we understand the nature of mind, know it as it is, and thus know that the mind can be trained. So through our practice of meditation, experiencing this, when we train the mind and the results of training the mind and the quality of mind to be aware and bright and awake, okay? Experience this, we understand the nature of mind. That is, we understand that the nature of mind is not our anxiety or our complicated thinking or our reactivity to something that happens, but it is the awareness itself in which that anxiety or unpleasant feeling or pleasant feeling arise and passes away, okay? So experiencing this, we understand the nature of the mind rather than getting stuck in the content that arises in the mind and our reactivity to that. We know it as it is, and thus know that the mind can be trained, okay? We know that the mind can be developed. We now have complete confidence that we ourselves are capable of such training. We are happy to study for the sake of such training. With this delight in mental training, this cultivation occurs naturally in those who truly understand that mind can be trained. So once we start to have this understanding, then the practice of training itself becomes more natural, more like a second nature. Our practice of being here in the present moment, okay, and remembering to come back to the present moment. Our practice of doing good deeds, doing acts of generosity, to take care, to help other people, not just to be totally self-fixated and self-focused. And also our practice of detachment. We are willing to let go. What we hold on to, what we get stuck on, what we get attached to, we have this willingness to let it go, to put it down. So in this way, the training begins to occur naturally. This development begins to occur naturally. At present, we probably don't see mind's nature clearly enough. And so, we remain unconvinced that we can train the mind. We may try to meditate, but we can't quiet the mind instantly, and so we give up easily. People who come here to Soan Mok, this is Ajahn Buddhadasa, this monk that we're reading from, this was his main temple in Thailand, which is still there. People who come here to Soan Mok often ask how long it takes to train mind. Encountering mental restlessness and distraction, they can't take it even for a little while. They give up in defeat. We see many who are like this. Hardly anybody persists in their struggle to train the mind, to increasingly bring it under their power until mastery is accomplished, until the subtlest troubles, the smallest troubles and distractions no longer arise in the mind. Instead, surrender comes far too easily, and they accept defeat. So don't give up. Struggle on 20 times, 30 times, 50 times, even 100 times. Each time that we show up to this kind of event, to this meditation session, this gathering right here, okay? Or each time that we pick up a Dhamma book, a Buddhist teaching book, or we put on a guided meditation, or we show up to our meditation practice. Each time that we show up here, surrender comes far too easily, and they accept defeat. So don't give up. Struggle on, try again, show up again, 20 times, 30 times, 50 times, even 100 times. Know that the nature of mind is essentially uncorrupted. Troubles are stirred up only when things impact mind. Therefore, we can separate corruption from mind through the simple method of acting rightly in regard to whatever provokes it. This method is known as mental cultivation. Whether we speak in terms of vipassana or samadhi meditation, vipassana in this insight, seeing into the nature of the mind, or samadhi, which is we concentrate, generate this real deep state of peace and concentration in the mind. Whether we speak in terms of insight meditation or a concentration meditation, they are collectively referred to as mental cultivation or psycho-spiritual training. This is something we must understand. Questions? Sharing about any of this?
I'd just like to say thank you. I think this is exactly what I needed to hear at this point in my practice. So thank you.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. This is what I needed to hear too. Okay. So, let's wrap up with a few minutes of meditation together. Okay, let the Dharma reign soak in. And if you don't understand certain things, if it's a little bit out of bounds, don't worry too much about that. You just let it sink in, listen with an open heart, and come back to training the mind, come back to the practice, all right? I mean, we don't understand Vietnamese, but we can meditate, even if we're in Vietnam. You know, it's not so complicated. So find your meditation position, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever your past is, whatever your future might be. Disregard all that. Put it to the side and find that comfortable, stable position for your body right here, right now. Bring your attention onto the breath, onto the presence of the whole body sitting here. In hearing, just here. In breathing, just breathe. In feeling uncomfortable, just feel uncomfortable. And in feeling relaxed, just feel relaxed. Following the breath as it flows in and flows out. Practicing together, just sitting. Just breathing and being aware. Whenever we get involved in enjoying our meditation or not liking our meditation, or in the great frictions and complicatedness of the mind or the body, coming back to just breathing, not someone, not some experience, just breathing, just being aware. So we'll finish our practice today with a few words of metta. a few words of loving kindness meditation. Metta is this practice where we offer a loving friendliness, loving kindness to ourselves unequivocally, completely, wholeheartedly. We plant those seeds of friendliness towards ourselves, and all you need to do is repeat after me. And as you are repeating after me, either with your voice or your internal voice, your mind's voice, just put your full sincerity, your full integrity into these words as we direct this loving kindness, this loving friendliness towards ourselves, towards this body and mind. Repeating after me. May this body and mind be happy and at peace. May this body and mind be happy and at peace. May this body and mind feel safe. May this body and mind feel loved. May this body and mind feel happy and at peace. May this body be free from illness. May this mind be free from fear. May this body and mind be at peace. May this body and mind be at peace. May we all offer out the peace of this body and mind in all directions. May we all offer out the peace of this body and mind in all directions. May all directions support my peace. May my peace support those in all directions. May it be so. May it be so. May it really be so. Okay, we can all bring our hands together. And to finish, we'll all chant sadhu together. So you can try to chant along. This word sadhu means well done. So it's just like we give ourselves a pat on the back and we recognize the goodness, the auspiciousness, the greatness of practicing like this together. And try to chant along with me, okay? Take a deep breath. Okay. Sadhu. 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 Okay. Thank you all for being here, supporting each other. And let's keep it up. Let's keep training our mind and supporting each other. All right?
Yes.
Okay. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. I want to ask you a question.
Oh.
Too late now. Can you plug the HDMI cord in?